Weeaboo Lutheran, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, I suppose. It's the new year already over here, and
Oh, so
yeah,
you're from the future.
yeah.
All right. Being that you
Mm.
are called Weeaboo Lutheran, and you have a tendency to the anime scene, um, what is it about a fandom that attracts people? What is it, and not just the anime fandom, but just any fandom in general? Is it a sense of community? Is it a sense of longing, or is it just interest in something that grows over time? Can it be idolatrous? I know that's a lot to take in, but
Yeah. Yeah, as you mentioned, human beings, they like to belong in a group, and fandoms are very much like that. Like people share a common interest in a certain thing, especially like movies, or there's a sort of reference point that that people can form a group of sorts, and that's what fandoms have given us. And it's a world that's getting more oversaturated with media, and like as you mentioned, like Fly Me to the Moon, Tonikaku Kawaii, like they do a good job of portraying women in the traditional sense. They're usually depicted to be dependent on men, and they have like a sort of desire to be good wives, and the power that they have is in a way exaggerated to imply that like in like you see in fantasy anime, like the where women have power and whatnot, it's usually exaggerated to show that the authority that they have is in a way fiction. And and yeah, so in that sense, like the depiction of the family is still traditional, whereas in a lot of Western shows, like they tend to sort of subvert the model of what the ideal family should be. So it would be common to see in Western shows these days of the mom being like the powerful one, and like the dad being like the dumb guy, and
right.
the mom's like the voice of reason and what. Yeah, and but on the other hand, the community in a whole is very degenerate. Like as we see in media in general, like how everything's over sexualized. Like not only in anime, in Hollywood and everything. And there's this thing called Route 34. Have you heard of it, Brendan?
No, I have not heard of that.
So so it's an internet rule. If anything exists, there has to be porn of it, and
What?
and we see it all the time in the internet, and it's even more among the anime community. Like they're more they have a tendency to lewd things and sexualize everything, and that is a common pitfall that Christians should try to avoid, whether in anime or outside of it. So, but the Christian should pay even more attention, especially in the anime community, because of things like this. It's way more exaggerated in like among the anime community.
Yeah, and I know a lot of my libertarian and conservative, right leaning audience may or may not um, agree with this, but there's an aspect to obscenity laws that are actually a good thing. So the free I don't know if you know about this, but America actually tried at one point to ban lolicon and the depiction, cartoon depiction of underage um, underage kids and stuff like that for we'll just say so YouTube doesn't yeet me off of their site for not childlike purposes, if you get what I'm saying. They tried to do
Yeah.
this, but a group called the Free Speech Coalition, which I think is just the most pathetic name ever because they're not really for free speech; they're just really for pornography. They struck it down over free speech and all this stuff. I don't know. Maybe you're not American, so maybe you can give me your opinion on this. Obscenity laws probably should exist, in my opinion, and I think that they can be applied even to the art that we create, and to try to curb society away from stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the laissez-faire approach, like oh, hands off, the free market to regulate itself, is not exactly a good thing because morality doesn't come by popular opinion. Because we all know that our nature is a fallen one, and people will naturally gravitate towards things that are more depraved if left unchecked. That's why God gave us the law. Like the first use of the law is to keep sin in check, and so there has to be some sort of regulation to ensure that things don't step out of line in a
Right,
way.
right, and I mean, again, these like I said, a lot of my audience are not going to like that I have a stance like that because there's this idea in America that free speech is absolute, even though technically it's not. I mean, we still have slander laws and stuff like that, but I don't know. I think obscenity could. Now, here's a question, and maybe it's way off topic for what we're talking about, but should free speech exist solely to protect religious speech? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, I think there should be like responsible speech. Like in the past, we had blasphemy laws, like to ensure that uh, that uh, that people don't just blaspheme God and things like that. I think those aren't inherently bad. Now, the person who's really gung ho on free speech without objecting and go, oh, that's you're suppressing people's freedom. But there are certain things that would definitely incite people to violence. We should take a more pragmatic approach to it. Like there are certain things that would spur people to violence, and you being sticking to the principles of free speech is just going to escalate those tensions. Like we see in France, all the violence is because they don't check, they let people say anything under the sun, and it just allows tensions among communities to escalate.
Right, right. So getting back to fandom, where is there a line? I think that this is obviously a conscience question, so I don't know if we can say generally where the line is, but generally speaking, if we could say that there's a line where fandom becomes idolatry, where would you put that? I'm thinking more like, where can a fandom lead someone to sin, I guess?
Mm. Well, as Luther put it in his Large Catechism, and a God is whatever you fear, love, and trust above anything else, where you expect all good to come from it. So I would say that it becomes idolatry once it starts getting in the way of God.
Hmm.
Like like you look to it that it's the first thing that you look to for trust. Like I've seen numerous people like on the internet, like when you look at the comments of uh, like VTubers, personalities, or anime clips, you would see, oh, this cured my depression. This is what I'm living for. And in that sense, it becomes idolatry because you look to it for all sources of good. You fear, love, and trust it above all things. So that's like it's the first thing you go to instead for all your troubles.
So here's a hypothetical situation. Say there's someone that is LARPing as, we'll say, a priest of a certain water goddess, okay? And he's going to conventions and stuff like this, and he's playing the part, putting a lot of stuff. He's very good at cosplaying, and he's going around and trying to sign people up for this cult, right? And then he says everything he's doing is just a commentary. Would that be idolatry? Is that paganism? And because I know the answer is yes, then why then is that wrong?
That's an oddly specific example, Brent.
Well, I'm just trying. Look, when I do my analogies, I don't have anybody specific in mind. When I do my analogies, I just try to be as general as possible. So the only reason it's specific is just to nail down, what we're talking about here.
Well, I think, well, in all seriousness, I don't think there's much of a problem. I mean, it's like part of fandoms for people to go dressing up and LARPing as things. It's part of the fun in a way, but you're not really, unless of course you like the irony sort of drops and you actually start to believe that you are what you are LARPing as. In that case, then it can start to be idolatry. Like the lines can blur sometimes, like especially when you really get into it, but in itself, I think it's fine that people can have fun and dress up.
Okay. So, I mean, but specifically, a water goddess, though. I mean, it seems a bit odd. It seems a little useless to me.
Pretty pagan, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah. What would be the opposite of pagan? What would be a better representation if someone's going to cosplay?
You should cosplay and worship the Eris goddess. No,
Okay.
I just.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Uh, I hope Phil Moore is still in the chat. He should be, but not that any of that was about Phil Moore or anything. All right. So let's one more question I got for you. You get going to, and you've been kind of popping in and out in the stream, in the chat and everything, and the discussion that one of the discussions that we had, with Ryan from 1517, the anonymity of the internet and the idea that people can take things a little too far on the internet than they probably should. Seeing that you are on the internet, you do you have some meme pages and you are adversed in meme culture. is there something that we need to keep in mind as far as, caring for a neighbor, not taking things too far on the internet, remembering that there are, human beings on the other side of that? Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. By the way, I am one of the admins. I'm not like Weeaboo Lutheran isn't just run by me. There are like 10 other admins also running the Facebook page.
Right.
So yeah. So yeah, we would find a lot of hecklers on our memes sometimes, and would challenge some of the things that we have. Certain times it gets really spicy. Sometimes it gets out of hand. But as a general rule, we should, because when it's online, it's really hard because you don't see the person's face. So it's very easy to forget that they're also human beings, and it's very tempting to say things that you wouldn't say to a person's face, like in real life. So like it's something that we have to constantly remind ourselves, especially when arguments get really heated. Like if you see people on the internet, they like to argue. They tend to be stubborn and uh, contradict themselves a lot and argue really badly,
Hmm.
because like it's a platform where anyone can go. So it's very easy to sort of lose your cool and control in a way. But yeah, we have to always remind ourselves that they are also human beings, and if they're sincere, I mean, some of like even if the people that you're arguing with aren't necessarily are really obstinate and not interested in changing their minds, there could be other people are also going to be reading the comments. So we should try to be as we should yeah not go too far in our polemics. Like we should try to present the information in a way that when other people read it, they won't just be turned off by the amount of uh, like rudeness, I guess. Like we shouldn't be too big of a jerk, I guess. Like there's like we should present our arguments in a way that sort of brings our point across without going too far. It's kind of what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right. So we're running up on time for you, my friend. Any final thoughts?
Like your confessional week page on Facebook, we post every day, I guess. Shameless plug here.
Awesome. Awesome.
But yeah.
And just like with all guests, links for social medias and everything will be in the description once the stream goes offline. So, yeah, thanks for being on. I appreciate it. It was I'll be honest with you guys. As much as I love all the other guests that are appearing on the show, I I am a little bit fanboying over Weeaboo Lutheran because he is a very special guest to me, and I appreciate everything you've done for my channel, my dude. I appreciate you being active, liking my stuff, and just helping me along and making sure I don't go full on cringe.
Ooh. All right. Thanks a lot, Father Brandon.
All right, catch you later, man.